Every week, dozens of new manga chapters arrive to entertain all of us consumers. Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero, One Piece, Hajime no Ippo. I can go on and on about the manga that I fervently wait for, be it weekly or monthly. But something that often goes forgotten is what goes on behind that awaited weekly release. The blood, sweat, and tears that manga authors, or mangakas, put into creating a mere 20 pages. But what is just 20 pages, a couple minutes out of our day for us readers, is a week of non-stop work, little sleep, malnutrition, and stress for the author. Anime like Bakuman have shed light on the life of a mangaka in a very realistic way. And the sad truth is that being a manga writer is essentially voluntary enslavement. Meeting deadlines, living up to fan expectations, company expectations, and their own expectations as writers, thinking up a plot. Today, I will go into the sad and dark reality of being a manga author and the extreme toll it's taken on countless authors to this day. After getting picked up by a big publishing company like Shonen Jump, though you would expect it to get easier from there, this is far from the truth for mangakas. There are no breaks. The weekly schedule for most mangakas relies on less than 6 hours of sleep every day, a number that reduces usually the bigger and more popular the manga is. Eiichiro Oda, the author of One Piece and the biggest manga in the history of the world, is reported to on average sleep only 3 hours from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Another source claims that these 3 hours actually consist of only 30-minute naps every 4 hours. So why is time so limited? Well, you have to imagine creating a short story from start to finish, all within 1 week and all of the processes involved. After turning in the previous week's chapter on Sunday, the cycle begins anew, immediately. According to an anonymous mangaka's schedule, from noon on Sunday to 5 a.m. on Tuesday, it consists almost entirely of storyboarding. Deciding on panels, what characters appear in each, the story of the chapter, how it ends, essentially planning out its entire structure. The only break in that long period of time is 2 hours for sleep and 1 hour for breakfast. That is, as long as you consider meetings with their editors as still work, of course. And you can tell from the rest of the week just how packed it is. Coloring the panels, shading, working on the final manuscript. Only 3 hours of free time exist in the entire week, excluding eating and sleeping, which are the bare necessities. But again, to return to the idea of voluntary enslavement that I mentioned earlier, because it does seem rather harsh, we have to remember that it is voluntary. Mangakas, despite the terrible schedule, do this all for a reason. Yoshiro Togashi, the author of Hunter x Hunter, which is notorious for taking long periods of hiatus, stated that it has come to the point where either the story concludes first or I die before that happens, but I do intend to finish it. That endgame looks rather bleak considering Hunter x Hunter's current hiatus chart, lined with primarily breaks for the past years. But we can never underestimate the passion of a mangaka. Likewise, Oda told his current editor when he first joined to die for One Piece. Mangakas are extremely dedicated to their craft. Of course, sleep deprivation isn't the only cost of being a mangaka either. Sitting in a chair for so long working on manga leads to numerous health hazards. They can develop diabetes despite almost all mangakas being very skinny and almost frail. Tendinitis can develop in their hands from drawing so long, something that is so common amongst mangakas that it isn't even an expectation that they'll get it. They just accept it as a way of life. One of the members of Clamp, a female mangaka collective who created Cardcaptor Sakura, among other names, suffered from lumbar compression fracture in 2011 because she spent too many hours hunched over her chair and straining her back drawing. Togashi, the author of Hunter x Hunter, also deals with aggravated back pain that prevents him from consistently putting out chapters. Other series like Vagabond and Berserk, despite being some of the most highly rated manga of all time, also suffered an early fate due to health concerns of the authors. This culture of overworking yourself isn't exclusive to mangakas, however, as the concept of karoshi, death by overwork, is very prevalent across all of Japan. In 2016, it was estimated that 1 in 5 workers were at risk of karoshi. This is so serious of an issue in the country, in fact, that the government passed a reform bill in 2018 that limited overtime and fined violators for overworking. Japan is a very collectivism-oriented country, prioritizing their group's success over individual. Kona Shiomachi made an illustration in response to the 2015 death of an employee due to karoshi, the key line being, "If I moved one step further in front of the train, I wouldn't have to go to work tomorrow." The idea of karoshi is reflected in people dedicating themselves to their work and employers, to an extent that is often not just prioritizing group success over individual, but it comes at the cost of individual health as well, be it physical or just mental well-being. Kishimoto Masashi, the creator of Naruto, while the series was still being serialized, never had the time to take his wife on a honeymoon despite being married for 15 years. Tite Kubo, the author of Bleach, once spoke in an interview at San Diego Comic-Con on how his appearance at Comic-Con was far from a vacation, as he had to draw any chapters he missed before he went on the trip, which, considering the anonymous typical schedule for a mangaka that we looked at earlier, I have no idea how he was able to fit it all in. Just another testament to a mangaka's dedication. And of course, these problems exist on the condition that the mangaka does make it. Their manga makes it into Shonen Jump or another renowned publisher, and they get popular. Because if they don't get popular enough, then they can't afford assistants, a valuable asset for any manga writer, and have to do all of the work themselves, filling in lines, backgrounds, shading, all of it on their own. The pay is also nearly criminal. The assistant to the writer of Prince of Tennis gave the figure at about $100 per page. And though that could mean about $8,000 per month for a weekly author producing 20 pages a week, this is before taxes and hiring assistants, which will of course detract heavily from it. Though it isn't necessarily terrible, relative to the insane schedule they have and overwork, it is certainly not comparatively enough. Getting an anime adaptation can also drastically improve the exposure and popularity of the manga. But then, as we see with One Piece for example, it is still far from easy. Oda is one of the most hard-working and overworked by extent mangakas out there. No matter how big your manga is, it is always rigorous and constant work. And this all continues until your series finishes, whether it is of your own accord or not. Because it isn't just as simple as writing a chapter of one big book, but instead creating a new story every week that has to attract consistent attention and remain exciting and interesting. Otherwise, if the fans don't like it, the company is quick to drop you. After all, there's no shortage of new manga coming out in Japan. They can always get someone else. On the other hand, in anime like Bakugan, we saw how the company pressured the mangaka to continue the series, despite the author feeling like it reached its natural end already. Sometimes companies will do this because the manga is so popular that they can't afford to lose it, which means that sometimes even the author of the series themselves don't have full control over their own story. However, this isn't a super common occurrence. We see authors like Tite Kubo who decided himself that he would draw Bleach to the conclusion he wanted, despite health concerns and critiques from the editors. Which is, again, another reminder that this enslavement is still voluntary at the end of the day. When you look at everything put together, it's a rather unavoidable problem, be it due to collectivist cultural standards, karoshi, meeting deadlines, or just the mangaka's own desire to finish what they started. The process of creating manga is difficult, to say the least. We can only hope as readers that the reward they get from working, creating something that resonates with us fans and succeeds is enough for them. Manga is truly the life work of anyone creating it, and so we do have to be grateful for everything they've done for us. What do you guys think of all this? Leave a comment down below. As always, this has been the Anime Culture Corner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future in-depth show, manga, and character analyses.